Rules. You see them everywhere, right? From the employee handbook to the fine print on a contract. But have you ever stopped to think about what they're actually for? So let's dive in and really unpack the surprisingly complex and vital role that rules play in any organization.
I think this is such a great way to think about it. Rules aren't just a list of don'ts. No, they're the very skeleton that gives a company, a team, any group really, its fundamental structure. They're the framework holding the whole thing together.
Yeah, exactly. Just like our own skeletons, these rules define an organization's shape and how all the different parts move and work together. Without them, you just have, well, a formless blob, right? You don't have a living, breathing entity. But, and this is a big but, that's not the whole story.
Because that same skeleton, the thing that gives you strength, can also become a rigid cage that stops you from growing. You see, rules really have two faces. There's the promise, and then there's the peril.
This is the good side, right? This is why we make rules in the first place. They're supposed to be the great equalizer. They're there to tame chaos, to set clear boundaries, and to create a stable environment where, in theory, everybody gets a fair shake.
And here's the dark side. Those exact same rules, if we're not careful, can totally backfire. They can crush creativity and punish people for taking initiative, or worse, they can become a way to mask power plays, locking in advantages for a few and making the whole system unfair.
So here it is, laid out plain and simple. For every upside, like taming chaos, there's a potential downside, like punishing initiative. This is the constant tightrope walk that leaders, and let's be honest, all of us, have to navigate every single day. Which brings us right to this really tough spot, the leader's dilemma. Because the real challenge isn't about whether to have rules. It's about what you do with them when the stakes are high and the answer isn't obvious. Okay, put yourself in this situation for a second. You're the leader. There's a rule in the book, but you know that following it to the letter right here, right now, will actually hurt your team and your mission. So what do? This isn't just some textbook problem. This is a real gut-wrenching moment. And that's the core conflict, right there. You're caught. You enforce the rule, and maybe you fail the mission. But if you make a careless exception, you could completely destroy the trust your team has in you. It absolutely feels like a lose-lose situation.
Now, the trap here is thinking it's a simple black and white choice, that you're either a rule follower or a rule breaker. But that kind of rigid thinking is what got us into this mess in the first place. There's a much better way to look at this.
The path forward isn't about writing more perfect rules. It's about developing a better way of engaging with the rules we already have. And that solution is a leadership skill called discernment. So what is discernment, really? It's the ability to hold a rule in one hand and the unique, messy context of a real-life situation in the other. It's about using your judgment. It's about always asking, wait a minute, why does this rule exist? And does enforcing it right now actually serve that purpose?
And this is absolutely crucial. Discernment isn't some vague, fuzzy idea. It's a practice. It's a set of things you can actually do, intentional actions that can literally transform how an entire organization thinks about its own rules.
So, how do you do it? Well, it boils down to 3 key practices. First, always explain the why behind the rule. When people get the purpose, they can be smart about it. Second, you gotta have the courage to retire outdated rules. It's like cleaning out your closet. It keeps the organization from getting bogged down. And third, and this is where it gets really powerful, you create guardrails instead of rigid laws.
So let's talk about guardrails. Think of it this way. A rigid rule is no social media at work, period. A guardrail is more like, use your professional judgment on social media in a way that reflects well on our values. See the difference? One is a brick wall that treats everyone like they can't be trusted. The other is a guide on the road. It protects what's important while empowering people to use their good judgment.
So at the end of the day, the goal isn't to get rid of rules. It's to change our relationship with them. And this isn't just a job for the CEO. This is about your turn to lead, no matter where you are in the organization.
If you take one thing away from all this, let it be this right here. Real leadership isn't about blindly worshiping rules or proudly breaking them. It's about holding them with discernment, using them as tools to serve a purpose, not as masters that demand our obedience. And that leaves me with one final question for you to think about. In your own world, in your job, on your team, what's that one rule that everyone just follows without question that could really use a little less worship and a whole lot more discernment?